This is a break. This is a break from things because, you could say, oh yeah, the afterlife. Everybody wonders about the afterlife. God, everybody wonders about correspondence. Like, who asked about this? But this is as present in Swedenborg's works, and if he's right, as present in life as anything else is, and could even have a greater potential for opening up the mind and the pathways to everything good than any other concept that he covers. So what is a correspondence? I said at the end of the last section, and I meant it, that it's the universal symbolism available in everything. It's sort of the language of God that's written into everything that we encounter, and it's the means of connection between the spiritual worlds and the physical world. So it all sounds confusing and like a bunch of fluff right now, but let's get really, really tangible with it. This is from Secrets of Heaven 2988. And we're going to first confuse you and then try to clear it up, and you'll see this is a pattern in this section. To gain some idea of representations and correspondences, simply reflect on the activity of the mind, and specifically the workings of thought and will, or thoughts and feelings. These usually shine brightly from our face, lying openly visible in the expression there. For example, you may have a look of deep boredom as you're sitting there looking at your computer right now. Our emotions gleam more brightly than anything else, the deeper ones radiating from and glowing in our eyes. When our facial features act in unison with our mental processes, they are said to correspond and are correspondences. So when what's in your mind shows up on your face. Our actual facial expressions represent mental activity and are representations. The case is the same with the effects of bodily movement and also with any action the muscles produce. Everyone recognizes that our thoughts and intentions determine them. The movements and actions of the body represent those of the mind and are representations. If they harmonize, they are correspondences. So that might sound like a lot of words in a row, but let's take a really cute example of that. So let's say you got this little baby. When the baby does that, smiling and laughing, you know that means that baby is happy, right? Is feeling joy. The actual face move in that movement, that's not joy. That's just muscles contracting and skin reacting. Right? But we know it's an indicator of this psychological thing called joy. And Swedenborg would say that's a spiritual thing. He says the conscious part of you is a spiritual thing interacting with the physical part of you, which is your body. So when a baby feels happy and a smile shows up, that smile is it's a correspondence because you have an internal and an external working in unison. And babies don't know how to fake a smile, right? So that if I smiled but didn't really mean it, like I'm having fun, that's not a correspondence. But if I'm really happy and I really smile, my external is showing what my internal is doing. That is correspondence. It's the spiritual and the physical working together. And so we can easily read the smile as an indicator of happiness. Now, that human facial expressions are not the only place a correspondence shows up. They show up everywhere in the world around us. Correspondences abound in nature, in human created things, in all kinds of things. Let's read a little bit on it first. Heaven and Hell 1:12. Swedenborg says that the universe has been so created and formed by the divine. Okay, so we cleared it up. Now we're going to reconfuse you. Ready? The universe has been so created and formed by the divine that functions can clothe themselves in materials that enable them to present themselves in act or in results. First in heaven and then in this world. And so step by step all the way to the lowest things in nature. Lowest meaning outermost, not like they're not cool. We can see from this that the correspondence of natural phenomena with spiritual ones, or of the world with heaven, takes place through functions, and that the functions are what unite them. We can also see that the forms that clothe the functions are correspondences and unions to the extent that they are the forms of the functions. Okay, we're all confused again. We'll illustrate it. We'll take a walk actually out in the world and illustrate this for you. But just remember that we're talking about the functions. So what things do is what corresponds. All right, let's take examples. Let's take tangibles. So let's say we're walking along up a bridge. It's in the woods. Everything is beautiful. And we're suddenly struck by the notion, hey man, I'd love to learn more about spiritual reality through looking around. Well, we might invest a moment or two in taking a look over the edge of the bridge to our left, because there's a stream down there. We're looking at water, and Swedenborg says water corresponds to truth, meaning what water does for the physical, truth does for the spiritual. The water in the physical world can wash us, can quench our thirst, can clean us, can keep things moving. Truth does that in the spirit. So the more we learn about water, the more we learn about truth. But it's not just mineral. Let's look at this tree. Right? Things that grow. The tree can show us about spiritual growth because it is a three-dimensional living representation. The way it moves from a seed to a shoot to fruits is like the way we move from ideas to actions. If that's not good enough, let's look at God. Not that the sun is God, but that the sun performs the role for the physical world that God does for the spiritual world. The sun's heat and light make pretty much all this life you see possible. And Swedenborg is saying, in the same way, God's love and wisdom make our spiritual life possible. It's not just it's kind of an outer layer to the spiritual world, that there are actual spiritual realities. There's this truth in the spiritual world, and that is the essence of water here. So water is a reaction to truth, like a smile is a reaction to happiness, which is a complex concept, but the more you turn it over in their mind, the more it starts to make sense. So there are containers for this, but they can also be, these correspondences can be a way that we can learn. They can be a teaching tool. This is Secrets of Heaven 2992. And this is a story Swedenborg tells about a spiritual encounter where he was learning from physical things about spiritual things and seeing how that knowledge passes. He says, a great deal of experience has enabled me to see that nothing exists in the natural world and its three kingdoms that does not represent something in the spiritual world, or that does not have something in the spiritual world to which it corresponds. Among many other experiences, this one also illustrated the point. There have been times when I talked about the organs of the body and traced their links with each other, from those in the head to those in the chest and on into those of the abdomen. Some of those times the angels above me, so he's got angels around, led my thoughts through the spiritual qualities to which the organs corresponded. They did without making a single mistake. They were not thinking at all about the physical organs I was considering, but only about the spiritual qualities to which the organs corresponded. The nature of angels' intelligence is such that their spiritual knowledge teaches them all there is to know about the body, even the most deeply hidden mysteries, which cannot possibly come to our own knowledge. In fact, they know all about everything in the whole universe, which is a pretty good subset of knowledge. If you could only know a certain thing, how about it's all about everything in the whole universe? And how do they know it? It's through correspondences. It's because all knowledge is written into everything. Everything is telling us about everything else. There's this whole system in there, and it actually, this was intended to be a way for heaven to reach us.